Again, thank you for hosting me in this webinar. As Amy Jo said, I'm the Digital Services Manager at the Fox River Valley Public Library District in East Dundee, Illinois. And really what that position entails is working with all things technology. So managing the IT infrastructure of the building, doing desktop support, helping people when they're having issues on the computer, and also teaching technology classes and working with patrons and users one-on-one to help them use technology better. And I want to preface that by saying I don't really have any formal IT experience. I went and got my library degree with an English degree before that. So all of my IT experience and really just technology experience has come working with people and working in libraries hands-on. So I really think that everything I talk about here has practical applications elsewhere for really anybody. And to say again, I do work in the public library, so I hope that this is applicable to you all, and I think really it's applicable to anybody. So I hope you can find a use for it in your everyday life. So this is 10 easy steps to improve your technology skills. And I'm sure you're all here because you can feel you can learn a thing or two about technology. And we all know that libraries are more and more becoming spaces where technology flourishes, and it's often hard for us to keep up with the pace of technology and learn everything that's out there. Like I said before, I'll tell you that I'm no different. I'm in that same boat. I'm always trying to keep up with technology. I think technology is always going to outpace what we can do, so we really just have to work on the level that we can. And really, the truth is that being technology savvy isn't so much about knowing how and using technologies proficiently, rather it's knowing what's out there and what's on the horizon. So it's really about staying current with technologies. With these 10 easy steps, I really feel that you can embed these in your daily life to help you come up to pace with technology and stay on pace with technology. So we will go through a checklist for success, or what I like to call it. And these are 10, actually 11 steps that you can take to improve your technology skills. So first, we're going to talk about using your own library or maybe a public library that you belong to, using people who are in your own organization, shadowing everybody, diving in and asking questions or asking for a project that's going to require a new skill, reading blogs and listening to podcasts, and with that, just keeping up with the media that's out there, using social media to find technology resources, using social learning skills or tools, searching for things, taking time out for tech, and then embracing the notion of I don't know. So number one, we'll talk about using your library or a library that you belong to. So whether it's the library you work at or a library that you belong to, we all have different databases and resources available to us that can help us within our own jobs. These aren't just for the users who we serve. So think about what your library has to offer to your users. Many libraries these days have access to Gale courses, and Gale courses is a great resource because it offers 6-week online courses in computer technology, career, professional, personal development, writing, and publishing. So these are self-paced courses that you can take to boost your skills. Another one, and one that probably everybody's heard of, is lynda.com. And lynda.com is an online resource with over 4,000 video tutorials ranging from 3D design to Excel to photography to really whatever you can think of. I was developing a class for iMovie to teach here at the library, and I didn't necessarily know what I was going to do, and I hadn't used iMovie in a long time. So I took a lynda.com course and really developed my class from that, and learned as I went along. Treehouse. Treehouse is an online resource that offers tutorials on coding, so if that's something you're interested in or your users are going to be interested in, that's a great resource. Learning Express Library is something that I know at least many public libraries are subscribed to, and this is an excellent resource that offers tutorials everywhere from job skills to technology. And over the years, I've utilized Learning Express Library a number of times to develop technology courses that I teach. So again, I use these resources all the time to develop and teach other people. Recently, I actually gained access to lynda.com through my parents' public library, so I was able to access that content. So if you don't really have access to content at your library, look outside. Look at the library you belong to. Look at the library that maybe your parents belong to or your friends belong to, and see if you can get access to some of these resources through them, because learning and libraries are really all about sharing. The next thing we'll talk about is taking classes. So here at my library, we offer a variety of technology classes to our patrons and also to our staff. These are about 12 a month, ranging anywhere from Intro to Microsoft Word all the way up to iMovie, which I talked about a little bit before. And this is important because at least here we've instituted a core competency checklist for staff that requires staff to develop some competencies. And I've had numerous staff members actually sit in and take my class. So don't be afraid to sit in on something that's happening in your library or in your organization and learn from that. Many of the competencies that we were dealing with here at our library focused on the day-to-day operations of the library, ranging from anywhere from how to print, how to help others, how to use the copier, basic computer troubleshooting, using e-devices and e-books, all the way up to customer service. Now, I'll say something else about these competencies. This is our second year, and we're really looking forward to looking at the data that we had from last year and this year and seeing, how far people have come. But, I want to reiterate that people in the organization do utilize the classes that we offer in order to fulfill goals that they have here. So don't be afraid to do things like that. So now we have some free resources. So if you can't find any resources at your library or anywhere else, there's always a multitude of free resources that you can access. The first one I'll talk about is gcflearnfree.org, which many of you may have used before. But this has great tutorials on, again, Word, Excel, resume building, things like that. I recently developed an introduction to typing class, a 3-part series using a resource they had on GCF Learn Free. So I'm using that all the time to learn myself as well. Then there's UNC Community Workshop Series. This is more just for great handouts for technology classes that they offer. The handouts are step-by-step going through the process of the course that they have. digitalliteracy.gov, which offers a compilation of resources to help boost your tech skills. And then if you haven't been on OCLC's Web Junction, you should get on there, because Web Junction offers a whole host of free webinars on a variety of topics for library staff members or you and your organization. These are webinars that we use frequently, and we list a lot on our training resources at the end of the year. And then last for this step, just get involved. A few years ago, PLA and IMLS developed digitallearn.org, which is really a community of teachers and learners. You can go on, join the community for free, contribute content, or ask questions to see what other people are doing and get content from them. It's a great resource to meet people. I've had people send me messages after I've posted something on there asking if I could send them handouts for things, or what I do for specific classes. So you can really meet other people on there and connect with other people in the profession. And again, there's really no judging involved. Nobody's going to judge you for wanting to learn more. We use these classes all the time in these resources to develop our information literacy. And regardless of what anybody says, no one knows everything. And I want to hark back to the point of taking classes, again, maybe in your organization or at a public library near you, because we recently had a staff member here who took our Introduction to Word class. And after the class, she was so thrilled and she learned so much that she went and told her boss about it. And her boss came to me raving that she learned so much from this class. And that's great. I mean, that's what we're here for. That's what libraries are here for. And it's a really great way to learn. All right. Second, use people in your organization. What I mean by this is looking for people in your organization that may be more tech savvy than you. Try to find a tech mentor. If there's somebody who you work with who's always into the new technology things, talk to that person, ask them, how they figure out what they're doing or how they've learned that. I had a gentleman where I used to work, and we would work regularly on the reference desk together. And he would always just be browsing the internet, looking at all these different tech trends and things that are coming out. And I, would kind of think to myself at that time, well, he's not really working, he's just looking at technology websites. But I gather now, thinking about it, being elsewhere, that really he's just keeping up with what's out there. And that helps him in our profession, certainly because of technology's major role. And again, we're all here to help. Your greatest skill really may be someone else's greatest weakness. So share what you have to offer and listen to what other people have to offer. Number 3, shadow everyone. This kind of goes back to the step we just talked about, using people in your organization, but observe your colleagues in action. Sit in on a session where somebody might be helping. Sit in on a session where somebody might be helping somebody use a computer or use one of the databases that you have. Watch other staff show people how to use a tablet or an e-reader. Listen for keywords or words used most often. Usually these technology words or buzzwords are things that you can just Google and look up and figure out what they are, and then you have that much more knowledge. Learning is a process, and nobody really should be ashamed to ask for help. Like I said before, as the digital services manager here, I do all of the technology training and resources for our library. But I was recently promoted to this position, and it includes managing all the IT for the library. Before this, I really didn't have hands-on experience managing certain IT tasks. So I reached out to people in my organization when I had questions, and I also reached out to people in other organizations when I had questions. As simple as sending an email, and people were so thrilled to have me come over and look to see how their tech environment was set up, or to help guide me through a process of setting something up here. And then number 4, dive in. And what I mean by dive in is ask for a project that requires a new skill. If there's something that you're dying to learn how to do, or there's something that you really, really, really want to do, but you're not sure how to do it, ask if you can create a project using that. In that way, it's going to force you to use that skill. This thing can be simple or it can be involved, but make sure it interests you. It can be anything from creating a spreadsheet that tracks reference questions to creating a blog. An example of this was in an organization I worked at previously. Myself and our teen librarian were really interested in having a blog for the library. We had a voice. We wanted to write about things, about new movies or books or interesting databases, but we didn't have an avenue to do that on our website. So we formulated a plan to create this blog, and then I took on the position of actually physically creating the content and the site from WordPress. What I learned really early on in that process was that a WordPress template in itself was not going to work for us. So we had to dig a little bit deeper. I sat down and put my brain to it and researched a bunch of different websites and learned how to code that website to change our colors and our fonts and our font sizes. And in the end, it was a really great product and project that people in the organization loved writing articles and posting on. Before that, I had no real coding experience, but I was kind of forced into the position because I had committed to it to learn how to do that. And I think that's also a great way to learn new things, is to really force yourself into a situation where you have to do that. And with that, think about when you learn these things, that it really is a matter of using it or losing it. I have people come and take our technology classes multiple times over the course of a year because they took it once and then 3 months later they never used their skills they learned, so they wanted to take it again. So find a way to use it in your everyday life. Another great example that you can do that I think helps a lot of organizations is creating a wiki where people in your organization can find information. It's another thing that you can kind of try to force yourself to do to get outside of your comfort zone. And then hold yourself accountable. Hold yourself accountable to the projects you commit to or to the skills that you want to learn. And find reasons to use this new skill. Ultimately, learning these skills is going to be impressing people in your organization, and it's going to help you and your profession as you move along. So what I want to ask of you all, if you can hear me and if you can type in that chat box, is what's an example of something new that you think you can try? So I'll give a minute here and see if we have any responses, but think of something that you might want to try that would require you to use a new tech skill. And if you want, share it with everybody in that chat box there. Okay, so we have Tracy and Carol want to learn Excel. And again, Tracy says she checked out GCF Learn Free, and that is a really, really great place to go to learn Excel. They have Excel courses that are free, and they walk you through a whole bunch of different things to get to an end product. The good thing with those courses is that you have a takeaway from that course. We structured one of our advanced Excel courses around something that we found on GCF Learn Free using pivot tables. So they have pre-made pivot table examples, and when you go through the course, you learn how to do that. We use the same thing for mail merge, for our Word mail merge course with an example we found on GCF Learn Free. And it's great because you have that end product, and I think the end product really hammers home why you would want to use something like Excel to perform a task like that. So we have one more person typing here, and then we'll move on. Okay, So Tracy says it's going to become her new best friend, and she can refer to students as well. So that's good. And again, we do that all the time. I tell people all the time to go to that resource, because even if you think you know everything about Excel, and you're trying to teach it to somebody, you may not know everything. And GCF Learn Free is something that people can use at their own pace. All right, so moving on. Read blogs and listen to podcasts. So if you don't already read blogs, I highly encourage you to start reading blogs. This is one of the most important things that you can do to not only learn tech skills or hone your tech skills, but just to find out what's on the horizon and what's popular and what's coming up. It's a great way to get quick information, and you don't have to be an expert to read them. Generally, they're written for everybody. Blogs are a nice thing to incorporate into your daily workflow. You know, you can read these every morning while you're drinking coffee or when you get to work. I found a really great way to read my blogs was when I first got to work and I was on the reference desk. I would skim through some of my favorite blogs, which I'll share here in a second. And it was doing work. I was learning, so it was a nice way for me to spend that time. But I'll also, wake up in the morning and go downstairs and have my coffee and sit on my computer for, 5 to 10 minutes in the morning and just skim through the blogs, much like you might do with a news website you go to. You can do that with blogs. And if you make it part of your daily routine, it just becomes something that you're going to do every day, really. It's great. The same thing can be said about podcasts. If you have a long commute to work, find some podcasts that are going to be educational or fun, but also teaching you or to have you learn about something. I used to do podcasts a lot, but my commute now isn't that long, so I find it a little bit more difficult to do. So here are some of the blogs that I read pretty consistently. The first is Stephen's Lighthouse. If you don't know Stephen's Lighthouse, Stephen Abram is the librarian and executive director of the Federation of Ontario Public Libraries. And his blog covers technology, library news. It has a lot of infographics, design, and more. I was browsing this before this webinar when I had a couple of minutes, and there was a really nice infographic about how to get users engaged with YouTube. And we have a YouTube channel here, and it was interesting because there's things on there that I didn't know, and it took me 2 to 3 minutes to just look at that infographic and learn something new. The next one is The Digital Shift, which covers a lot about ebooks, library technology, social media, maker spaces, and more. So it's really about the shift from print to digital, even though it may not be happening as fast as some people say. It's a whole blog dedicated to digitizing and digital aspects of libraries as a whole. Then there's TechSoup for libraries. If you don't already know what TechSoup is, it's an organization, a nonprofit organization that basically offers discounts to educational institutions, and sometimes they're pretty hefty discounts. And you can become a member of TechSoup if you belong to an educational institution. So I highly recommend, if you don't know what it is already, look up TechSoup and try to become a member there, because they have some pretty good discounts on technology in general. But they also have a blog where they cover things like social media, library news, design, and more. And then the last one is The Verge. Now, The Verge, which can be found at verge.com, and I'll share these websites at the end here, is basically all things technology. So this isn't just library technology or what have you. This is what's the greatest phone, what's the next best computer. They have reviews on smartphones, computers, everything technology related. And it's a little fun because they they give some attitude towards technology. It's regular people just talking about technology. And then as far as some podcasts are concerned, The Verge has a really great podcast. It's called The Vergecast, and it's a couple of people who sit around in the evening, I presume, and drink beers and talk about technology and what's new on the tech horizon. And they make jokes, and it's fun to listen to. It's not just some guy talking about what's new. It's real people having fun talking about technology. The NPR TED Radio Hour is another great resource that you can use. And the TED Radio Hour is basically a bunch of TED Talks that NPR hosts for the podcast. And, you know, not all of them deal with technology, but many of them do deal with technology. So now I'd like to offer another opportunity to chime in, if you will. For any of you out there who want to share some blogs or podcasts that you read or listen to frequently, again, you can go ahead and type those in that chat box there, and I'll give a minute or so here to see those come in. All right, so Amy Jo says she started using The Verge since she first heard me speak. That's good. I've kind of fallen out of the Vergecast because it's hard to get a whole one in on my way to work, but it is fun, and the website is great too. All right, so we'll move on here. Oh, we have Sizemore. TechCrunch, yep, that's another great one. Okay, so we'll get into using social media. And while it may not seem like using social media is something that will increase your tech skills, there are tons of elements that social media requires to use tech skills. And you know, these are as simple as uploading pictures to Facebook or to Twitter. So if you're not on Facebook or Twitter, it's just a great way to learn that process of uploading documents or photos. But it's also a really, really great way to find tech resources and to learn about technology and the new technologies that are up and coming. So it's great to stay current with tech trends. If you don't have a Twitter account already, I recommend setting one up. If it's just for you to follow certain Twitter feeds, I have a Twitter account that I don't necessarily use all that often, maybe once or twice a year if I'm at a conference or something like that. But I follow a whole bunch of different people on Twitter that give me a whole bunch of different information that, again, you can just incorporate into your daily life every day to learn things. So some really great Twitter feeds that you can follow. Somebody here mentioned TechCrunch. So this is all things tech with breaking technology news, opinions, and analysis. There's Wired, which covers technology and lifestyle. There is Maker Shed, which sells products related to maker spaces and also talks about maker projects. There's Make, which covers DIY projects, how-tos, tech news, electronics, and crafts and ideas. If you're into 3D printing or your library has a 3D printer, Thingiverse is all about 3D printing. There's Make It at Your Library, which is connecting librarians to makerspace projects. There's CNET, which offers really great tech product reviews, news, price comparisons, videos, and podcasts. There's Mashable, which covers news, resources, inspiration, and fun for the connected generation. There's Stephen Abrams, so this is the same guy who does Stephen's Lighthouse. He tweets links to his blog posts. Then, of course, there's American Libraries, so that's American Library Association magazine. There's American Library Association News on Twitter, and then there's also the American Library Association, who shares a whole bunch of different things. And then for more news in general, if you're on LinkedIn, LinkedIn Pulse often offers up some pretty good articles on the happenings in the tech world these days. So with that, do any of you have any Twitter feeds that you follow that are particular tech heavy or can learn about technology from? All right. Well, then we have one coming in. Okay, so Robert Scoble. I want to write that one down. I never heard of him. So thanks for that, Sizemore. All right, so moving on here. Number 7, use social learning tools. And it looks like this one got caught off a little bit, but so that says use social learning tools. They're free, they allow you to learn at your own pace, and they allow you to learn when it's convenient. So really anytime. The only issue with social learning tools is that you have to be self-motivated. We have, of course, MOOC, so the massive open online courses, which are great. They're free. You can learn at your own pace, and when it's convenient. There are tons of different courses available from, these are just 3 of the providers of MOOCs that you can find. But only about 7% of people who actually start a MOOC will finish one. I can say that I've started many MOOCs before and have never finished them. But there's really, really, really great content on there. So they should be looked at. Other social learning tools, there's YouTube, there's TED Talks, there's Microsoft Virtual Academy, which offers courses for anything IT, so from beginner IT to advanced courses in IT. This one has helped me a lot in my current position. YouTube is great because if you're looking to find something or how to do a particular task in general, so let's say there's something in Excel that you really want to know how to do but can't figure out, if you just search for it on YouTube, you will be able to find it. Which leads us into number 8, which is actually just search for it. You can really find anything you want by searching for it on Google. A great example of this is I was testing, and I'm going to put Amy Jo on the spot here, but we were testing this Skype portion of our video conference here yesterday, so that we knew what it was going to be like today, and we couldn't figure out how to get me to be a presenter or to get me to show my screen, and we tried a bunch of different things, switching computers and things like that, and eventually I just searched for it on Google and found that it was a simple click of a button that allowed me to become a presenter and then present what I'm showing to you. So it's these little things that we deal with every day that we might not know the answer to but can find pretty quickly. Another example of searching for something is, a patron I had come in here a couple of months ago, really needed to delete her Skype chat history on her Android phone. Now this was something that you would think would be very easy to do and intuitive, but it turns out that it wasn't. She had been to the Verizon store and the Best Buy, and eventually she came to the library, and we sat down together and really just scoured the internet together to figure out how to do it on our phone. And it was not an easy process, and it was not intuitive, but without Google or without having the ability to search for it, we probably never would have figured out how to do it. So searching for something is your friend, and if you do work in a library, you probably know that there's a lot that we can find by searching for things. So perhaps the best thing that you can do for yourself to stay current with technology or improve your technology skills is to just take time out for technology. Set aside a small block of time every day or every week to sit down and learn a new tech skill or use the technology. Again, if you don't know how to use it, find a reason to learn it. And some examples: digitize your workflow. So take time out of your day and digitize the things that you have. So let's say you have, a bunch of different Post-it notes on your desk. I have tons of Post-it notes, and I do a horrible job of organizing that information. But there's tons of different things I can do using technology to digitize that workflow. An example of this would be notes with Evernote. If you use that, or if you've ever used that, it's a great way to organize your notes online. You can use it. There's a program for your computer. There's an app for your phone. So anytime you take a note, you can write it down and use it there. The other one I have up here is Wunderlist, which is a great thing that you can do to manage lists of things. So I found out about this a couple years ago from one of my coworkers, Wunderlist, and it's really probably changed my workflow forever. I found myself always writing down certain things that I had to do within the day. And Wunderlist is an app that you can get on your phone. You can download it on your computer, or you can use it online. So all I have to do now is create a list, type a thing in a list, and then push a button, and now it's on the list. So when I'm coming up the stairs and somebody catches me and reminds me to do something, or asks me to get something done, or the computer's broken, I go right away, and if I have my phone, I can punch it in my list, or I get to my computer and put it on my list. It really is a great application. And then, of course, we have a calendar. So I know many people still keep paper calendars, and I think there's still a benefit to that, but you can really throw out your calendar. And I'm not just talking about Google Calendar if you use it, but if you have Outlook in your organization, Outlook 365, you can use that calendar to create meetings, to invite people to meetings, to invite people to Skype with you if you want, to put in birthdays or what have you, and that's all digitized. And it's just another great way to learn how to use something that's online, to learn a new tech skill. And this one I kind of pinpoint more than others for the calendar, because a lot of organizations are either now using Google Apps for their email, or Office 365 for their email, because it's free for educational institutions. So that calendar is becoming more and more a tool that you're going to use for many things. Here I have a whole bunch of different shared calendars with my staff members for various things, so everybody can see them and put something on there, and we don't need a paper calendar for that. And then number 10 is embracing this notion of I don't know. So don't be ashamed to admit you don't know the answer to a tech problem or question. Figure it out together. If somebody comes to you and has a question and you don't know the answer to it, try to figure it out. I had a coworker a couple of years ago who wrote an article for our blog after reading a book, and in it she says, in her blog post, she writes, Are you afraid to answer "I don't know" to a question? I have to do this once in a while in my work at the library Ask Here desk. I usually have no problem with this response because I always follow it with "what I can find out," but sometimes I do have a problem admitting that I am not as knowledgeable as the person talking to me. She further goes on to say, "My mother has attained the ripe old age of 92 years, and with it an honest tongue, sometimes too honest. I'm wondering if my newfound confidence in saying "I don't know" stems from my advanced age, though I do have an unusual story from my past where saying "I don't know" served me in an unexpected way. I applied for a job years ago and was happily granted an interview, but after just a few minutes with the potential employer, I decided that it was not a good fit for me at all, and I took less care with answering the questions. It may be the most relaxed interview I ever had because nothing was writing on it. There were a few questions where not only did I respond "I don't know," but also "I haven't the slightest idea." To my shock, I received a follow-up phone call asking more interview questions, during which again I responded, for example, that I did not know how to install software, etc. The next day, another phone call came from the prospective employer with a job offer. So this is, in my opinion, probably the best example I can find of really just embracing this notion of "I don't know." This coworker of mine had flat out said she didn't know. Instead of fumbling and trying to make something up, she said she didn't know, and that prospective employer found merit in that. So use that to your advantage if you don't know something, and then work with whomever it is to figure out the solution to it. And I think you have some tools here to find a way to do that further. So this is number 10. However, I do have number 11 here, last but not least, and this is the notion of fail, fail again, and fail better. This comes from a book that I read by Pema Chodron, and I probably just butchered her name, but this is a great book about learning how to fail and learning from it. So learning technology truly is about failure. We all fail at technology all the time. Technology is ever changing, and we are hard pressed to move along with it. Something changes every day, and we might fail to use that thing. So if something doesn't work, you try something else, right? And if that doesn't work, you keep trying. Maybe this means you ask for help, maybe you look online, and maybe there's nothing that you can actually do about it. Maybe you give up, but hopefully you don't. We had a pesky computer here a few months ago that apparently had been freezing every so often for the past couple of years. I was new to my position, so my first plan of attack obviously was to blame it on the computer, or blame it on Dell, who was the manufacturer of the computer. It certainly wasn't my fault, right? I wasn't about to admit that I was the reason that this computer kept freezing. Finally, Dell came out and replaced the motherboard and hard drive for the computer, and a few days later, it froze again. So I tried a different power cord, and a few days later, it froze again. I tried a different network cable, and a few days later, of course, it froze again. I tried a different network port, and of course, a few days later, it froze again. I called Dell, who continually told me it wasn't their fault and that there was nothing that they could do about it. This went on for probably a month. We had young patrons, children, who would lose their work. Staff were at their wits' end with this. Every time we thought we had it licked, it would happen again. And I was beginning to question, why I decided to do this in the first place. Was I just not good at what I was doing? Was I not cut out for it? And no, I wasn't willing to accept that as an answer. Then it just came to me one day, probably while I was at home thinking about this, because it was all I could think of. Could it be the outlet the computer was plugged into? I plugged it into a different outlet, and a few days later, it was still working fine. A month later, there were still no problems. 5 months later, no problems. So I could say that that problem was solved. Now, of course, this is my job. You know, for a lot of us whose job this isn't, failure in technology generally leads to becoming close to technology. We can't keep up, so what's the point? We can't fix something, so what's the point? We don't know how to make a chart in Excel, so we do something else with our data. But maybe we should take these moments and transform them into curiosity moments. We can become curious learners, and when we do become curious learners, in the long run, everybody wins. You know, I'll use another example here about, you know, failing and learning from these failures, and trying different methods. I started taking mandolin lessons probably 6 months ago now. So I went out and I bought a fancy mandolin and was really excited about it. We've probably all been there buying something fancy and we're so excited. But after about 2 months of lessons, I quit. I really felt that I wasn't learning anything anymore, or that my brain just couldn't comprehend going any further. I just wasn't excited about going to the lessons. So now I had this $700 instrument collecting dust. You know, I could hear in my head all the time my fiance telling me over and over again, I told you not to buy that thing. You're going to give up anyways. Don't buy it. It's too expensive. But then one day, really out of nowhere, I picked it up again. I couldn't stand that voice in my head. I started just playing random notes. I ditched the stuff that I'd learned in the lessons that I couldn't grasp. And instead of trying to play what I learned, I tried just to play anything. My curiosity was sparked again. I accepted that I failed with the lessons, basically. But maybe that wasn't how I was going to learn. So I failed better. I found a different way to learn that thing. And I think this is a great way to think about technology. Just because you fail once or can't figure it out once doesn't mean that you're not going to figure it out later. It's all about trying these different methods. So with that, that's all I have for you all.